Welcome to yet another UCL Fantasy video. This is going to be the best Limitless team. Now, there's not going to be a best wildcard team, and for me, the reason why is because it's not worth wildcarding in the second leg of any of these rounds, because what if you wildcard into a team and then some of the players you bring in are eliminated? I don't think it makes any sense, and if you haven't used the wildcard in the group stages, what I would recommend is using it in the first leg of the quarterfinals, semi-finals, or even the final, but my preference would be in the quarterfinal, and then it would be the semi-final first leg. So match days 9 and 11 are the best times to wildcard if you haven't used it already, and I'll be making videos when the time comes, but right now I don't think it's worth it, and I think you would be shooting yourself in the foot. But in terms of the Limitless team, I'll probably make one for every single match day, because you could just use that whenever. It doesn't really matter, because the Limitless is only for one match day. It's like a free hit, but you have no budget restrictions, and I'm going to be showing you what I think is the best Limitless team in match day 8. Let me know what you would change. There are a few positions which are up for grabs, but most of it I'm quite happy with. There's the City rotation to also bear in mind. We won't have the lineups before the matchday 8 deadline, so you might have to take a few risks if you decide to triple up on City. I've used this goalkeeper pairing in a lot of my best Limitless team videos, but there's a reason for that. Courtois is the highest scoring goalkeeper this season. The amount of saves he makes, he did make a penalty save in the first leg, so he is a quality goalkeeper. Right now, he's arguably the best goalkeeper in the world. And in terms of who's on the bench or not, that doesn't matter. Remember, those on your bench should be playing on the final or second final day, and you can bring them on in terms of who has played already in your starting lineup in the first few days. If they blank or don't do too well, you can bring on those players from your bench to maximize your points returns. Mendy is probably one of the most likely to keep a clean sheet. There's also Edison, who's probably nailed, and in terms of City, you probably just want to go for Edison, and you know he's going to start, but I'd rather go for Mendy. And with the City defenders, I'm a bit more confident about who's going to start because of the injury City have, but I'll talk about that more later when we come to the defence. And Courtois is facing PSG, and Madrid have a lot of problems, so you don't have to go for Courtois, and he might be a bit of a controversial pick here. You could go for maybe Ulrich, because Neuer is injured, or maybe another goalkeeper, but I would still go for Courtois because his ceiling is so high, and even without a clean sheet, as he demonstrated in the last round, he can still get a very good return. But I would go for these two goalkeepers. Let me know what you would change. I'm guessing Courtois would be the kind of player up for grabs. And now let's move on to the defence. We're now on to the defenders, and I actually made a change because I was actually planning this best Limitless team in the last few days, but because of what's happened at City, I have made a few alterations. So with none of the centre-backs pretty much available, so Ake's injured, then you've got Diaz who's out between 4 to 6 weeks, you would expect Stones and Laporte to start all of these games, especially in the Champions League. So despite City's very comfortable lead, I expect Laporte to start now. If you still don't want to take any chances, you could go for Marquinhos, who's got great goal threat. He does a lot of ball recoveries, or maybe even another Chelsea defender, but my preference is not to triple up on any defence. Unless you're absolutely convinced they're going to keep a clean sheet, then why not? But it is very risky. I try to spread the risk, and it's a bit ironic coming from someone who's doubling up on City defence and also Chelsea, but I think it is worth it. They're two of the best defences in the world. Then I've got Trent. I think he's a bit of a no-brainer. He is facing Inter, so there's the possibility of them snatching a goal at Anfield, but I'd still go for Trent nonetheless, and he's also good for ball recoveries. Laporte I'd expect to start. City have no left-footed centre-back available apart from Laporte, so he should start all the games. And also Cancelo, I think he's going to start too. As for Kimmich, he hasn't been that good in the Champions League this season, and if Davis didn't have any issues, I think he would be my preference in the Bayern defence. He was so consistent in UCL Fantasy before all of the issues he has, and hopefully he recovers very soon. As for Reece James, I mean, we saw what he did against Burnley in the Premier League, and he's a bit more of an exciting pick. In UCL Fantasy, I always recommend Rudiger, Christensen because of the ball recoveries, but right now Reece James can get those ball recoveries and also the assists and goals, so I would go for Reece James, but let me know who you would pick. And because Chelsea have a lot of injuries in the right wing-back position, James is more nailed on to start than he would have been beforehand. Maybe he would have got a rest if everyone was available in that spot. But let me know if you would change anything here. I think Christensen would be a great pick, and a few others that I haven't really mentioned. I think there's quite a lot to choose from in defence. There's also Rudiger, who I have in my normal team. I really like him, and you can triple up on Chelsea if you want. Just bear in mind there is a big risk there. And let's move on to the midfielders now. Maybe this is going to be a bit more exciting. I'm slightly conflicted about the midfield because there's quite a lot of options, and there's also the City rotation. I'm less confident here because they pretty much have everyone available up front. Jesus, Grealish, Sterling, Foden, Bernardo Silva, Mahrez, De Bruyne, they're all competing for similar spots. So it's very difficult to nail down those City midfielders. So I've got Sterling and Mahrez, who have been the two best City midfielders in UCL Fantasy this season. But if you're not too sure about either of them, maybe go for Bruno Fernandes or Koeman, who's actually been very consistent since I think Matchday 3. All of those would also be great choices, and there's always one or two kind of row picks that can do very well too. Try to maybe aim for one or two differentials sometimes. You don't have to force them in, but if you back them to do well, then go for it because it could boost your rank significantly. But I have gone for all of this midfield. I'm quite unsure about Bruno Fernandes, Sterling, Koeman, etc. There is quite a bit of a division there in terms of who I would pick. But ultimately, I would go with this midfield. Salah, I'm very happy about, and I don't have any qualms about it. There's also Sadio Mane. We shouldn't underestimate him. He's a great choice. I've gone for Riyad Mahrez. I think he will start, but you just never know with Pep. So it's up to you if you want to take that risk. I'm more confident about the defenders, not so much with the midfielders. As for Sane, he hasn't been as good as he was at the beginning of this season, but I would still go for him, and I back him to turn around his form in the Champions League. But he's been so consistent overall, so I think it's worth giving him another shot. His ownership is very high as well, and I think this is a great midfield, but it's up for debate, and there is one or two more picks that you can go for instead of what I've selected, and you can do very well. Bruno Fernandes has been very consistent in the Champions League this season with 7 assists, no goals, but his ceiling might not be as high as some of the other midfielders on this list and the ones that I've mentioned, but I think all of them are really good. You could also go for a Chelsea midfielder. Kai Havertz is showing some great form and he's playing as a striker, so you could consider him too, but I would stick mainly to these 5. But if I were playing the Limitless, I would possibly not risk it with double City attack and instead go for a Koeman or a Havertz instead. To complete this team, I've gone for Lewandowski, Haller and Mbappe. Now that one is a bit contentious. You could go for Vlahovic instead, who has a better fixture on paper. But I've gone for Mbappe because of the sheer consistency all season, and Real Madrid have a lot of issues at the back. Alaba might not be available. They've also got so many injuries throughout their back line. I think Mbappe could be a great shout. Why have I gone for Courtois? As I discussed already, it's because of his high ceiling due to the amount of saves he makes. So I think he's still a good option in isolation, and they could both still haul, just like they did in Matchday 7. But once again, you can make a few changes throughout this best Limitless team to your liking and depending on what you think is going to happen in all of these matches. I've gone for Haller because he's the top scorer in the Champions League. You know, you can't underestimate that. And he's the highest scoring forward. And he's only 9.4 million still, which is incredible. And remember, in terms of price rises, there aren't going to be any before the deadline. They always happen as soon as Matchday 8 begins or any matchday begins. And then they update the prices accordingly based on transfer activity, I believe it is, or also performances. But I've gone for Lewandowski here. And in terms of the captaincy, just once again, you can change it between each single day. So on the first day, I would go for Lewandowski. On the 9th, I would go for a City attacker. But it also depends on the lineup, and you will get the lineup, but not before Matchday 8 in terms of the City ones, but you will get it before that day begins, if that makes any sense for you. But there is a substitution window in all of these days. Just bear that in mind and make sure you look at the lineups and kind of go with your gut feeling and then stick the captaincy on the player you think is going to do the best. In terms of the second week, on the 15th, that's where it's a bit more interesting and open. I would go for Sebastian Haller, and on the 16th, it would be Reece James actually. That's how I would go about it in terms of the captaincy with this best Limitless team. Let me know what you would do and which changes would you make to this best Limitless team. I'm well aware that it's all down to interpretation, and although all of these players are top quality, maybe in terms of the fixture and form, some of these are dispensable, like Sane, maybe even Haller, maybe even Sterling because of City rotation, Courtois. So it's all down to opinions, and I'd be very interested to see yours. And if you enjoyed this video, smash the like button and subscribe for new. And in terms of the best wildcard, once again, I would not be playing it in the second leg of the round of 16, of the quarterfinals or the semi-finals. I think that would be a huge mistake. So if you are looking to wildcard, try to reconsider and instead use your free transfers. You got free. In my case, check out the team selection video. I don't even know what I'm going to do with my normal team, and I'm struggling to even get to free transfers. Right now, I'm looking to make 2, and even then I've got some kind of doubts about it because I'm very happy with my normal team. Check the description below and consider joining the Discord server as well as the UCL Fantasy League, and you can also do it with FPL. If you haven't seen my FPL content, check it out. I've got playlists for FPL and UCL Fantasy, and you can become a channel member or a Patreon. A list of all the membership perks is in the description below, and if you sign up right now to any single tier, you can get exclusive early access to all my videos, whether on YouTube or Patreon, so consider doing so. It's a special offer. Thank you very much to everyone who's already done so. It's much appreciated, and all the very best of luck with UCL Fantasy and FPL. Just enjoy the football. That's the most important thing, and I'll see you next time.